She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. In a fragile skull, I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know. And she's got me living in a chemical love, and I try to find the strength to know when she comes back to me again. I'm gonna come up from my hiding.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. And today we are talking about a case that comes out of Everman, Texas, which is a city of about 6,000 people on the outskirts of Fort Worth in Tarrant County. And it kind of feels like this is the month to be talking about crimes happening in Fort Worth. I don't know how this happened. I do know how it happened, but it's a long explanation. But basically, Derek and I covered the case of Carla Walker on Crime Weekly. We just finished up the Missing Fort Worth trio on this channel. And now we're talking about 6-year-old Noel Rodriguez Alvarez, who has not been seen since the fall of 2022 and whose mother and stepfather fled the country in March of 2023, right after the police showed up at their door to perform a welfare check on Noel. And Noel's disappearance can be added to the list of dozens of children who, over the course of the pandemic and onward, have disappeared, not been reported missing by their parents. This case also reminds me a little bit of Lori Vallow, the way that she was behaving in the aftermath of her own 2 children disappearing, the things she was saying, the things she was accusing her son JJ of. Honestly, you'd think by this point we would be used to it, right? We'd be like, oh, it's just another little kid just completely vanished at the hands of their parents who never reported them missing, who are doing everything to evade law enforcement. Just another day in the life of an American citizen. But I'm not used to it. I'm livid. I'm very angry. And every case that comes across my desk that has this sort of progression, this sort of timeline, it doesn't make me feel more desensitized to it. It doesn't make me feel more used to it. It makes me more angry, more furious. So we're going to go through all of that today. But before we dive in, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Helix Sleep. Today's video is sponsored by Helix Sleep. Right now, Helix Sleep is running their Memorial Day sale and you can get 25% off your purchase, but only for a limited time. Check out their site for more details. Helix Sleep makes premium mattresses and bedding that are customized to fit your needs and conveniently shipped right to your front door or your back door. Whichever door you use the most, Helix Sleep will ship your mattress right to that one. It has been years now that I've been getting better quality sleep on my Helix Sleep mattress, and at this point, in every room in my house, at least every bedroom, there is a Helix Sleep mattress. My oldest daughter, my youngest daughter, my son, we have a Helix Sleep mattress, and that means everybody's getting better quality sleep, and that means everybody is less grumpy, which is always a win for me, because I don't have time for a grumpy family. Everyone is different, and Helix knows that. And that's why they've made a sleep quiz that matches your unique body type and sleep preference to the perfect mattress for you. So for example, I'm a side sleeper and I like a firmer mattress. I really do like to feel supported when I'm sleeping. So I need that firm, I've got your back kind of mattress. And that's exactly what my Midnight Lux, which is the mattress that I was matched with when I took the Helix Sleep Quiz, that's exactly what that mattress gives me. My sleep has genuinely improved since I've been sleeping on the Midnight Lux mattress. And I mean, honestly, I used to wake up with a ton of back pain and I just kind of thought that was a part of getting older. But now I realize that it was just because my mattress sucked. My other mattress sucked. And now with the Midnight Lux mattress, I wake up with less back pain. I wake up feeling less cramped and I'm actually falling asleep and staying asleep instead of tossing and turning all night trying to find a comfortable position, which gives me better sleep, deeper sleep. And I wake up feeling less tired. tired. I mean, it seems so simple, but it's true. The right mattress can make a complete difference in your life. Also, if you sleep with a partner, you can both take the Helix sleep quiz jointly and find a mattress that, fits both of your needs. You can compromise. Personally, for me, that's not what I did. I took it myself and I told Adam, this is the mattress you're sleeping in because I'm not going to compromise and he's just going to like whatever I tell him he's going to like. But yeah, you could take it with a partner if that's your thing. And you can personalize your mattress even further by adding the Glaciotex cooling cover, which will keep you cool and even more comfortable while you sleep. And with these upcoming hot summer months on the horizon, I'm definitely going to pick up one of those because I cannot stand sweating and getting hot when I sleep. Once again, it's all about the best quality, the deepest sleep that you can get, and studies show you sleep better when your body is cooler. Purchasing your new Helix sleep mattress is so easy. Like I said, you take the sleep quiz, you find the one you're paired with, you order it online, it shows up to your door in a little box that you couldn't believe a mattress was in, and you're like, there's no way my mattress is in here. This is probably the pillows. And then you open it up and there's a mattress, and you unroll it, and it goes from being small to, mattress size, and then you just put it on your bed. It's so easy. And if I say it's easy, it really is, because I feel like nothing's ever easy for me. And the best part is, Helix is going to give you a 100-night sleep trial. That means you can sleep on this mattress for 100 nights in the comfort of your own home without any mattress store employees watching you and coming over while you're trying to lay on the mattress and get a good feel for it and be like, what do you think? Do you like it? Because that's creepy. It's creepy when people do that, right? When you're laying on a mattress in the mattress store and the employee comes over and stands all close to you and they're like, feels good, doesn't it? And then you're like, why are we this close right now? And why are we talking to me in that whispery tone when I'm laying in bed? So you can lay on your Helix sleep mattress 100 nights in your own home. And I've always said you should definitely live with somebody before you marry them. You should definitely sleep on your mattress for, a good amount of time before you decide that it is the mattress for you. Helix mattresses also include a 10-year warranty, and they offer financing options and flexible payment plans. We really love our Helix mattresses in this house, and if you're looking for a new bed, I want you to give Helix a try. I think if you do, you're going to love your mattress as well. Like I said, their Memorial Day sale is running right now. It is the perfect time to upgrade your sleep with 25% off a Helix mattress plus 2 free pillows. Click the link in the description box or go to helixsleep.com/Harlowe for this limited time offer. Once again, 25% off a Helix mattress plus 2 free pillows. And listen, these pillows are amazing. I don't just say that. They are amazing. These pillows are so good that I actually went and bought 2 more just in case. And I love them. Thank you so much to Helix for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. Before we dig into the timeline of Noel's disappearance, let me give you some context, some background information about Noel and his family and their living situation, their dynamic. So Noel had been born prematurely at just 23 weeks, and he suffered from several developmental disabilities and health conditions, including speech delays, esotropia in both eyes, and esotropia basically is an eye misalignment where one or both eyes turn inward. He also had chronic lung disease, which he often needed oxygen for, and Noel lived with his mother, 37-year-old Cindy Rodriguez Singh, and his stepfather, 35-year-old Arshdeep Singh, along with 6 siblings who were aged 7, 8, 9, 11, and then a set of 5-month-old twin girls who had been born in October of 2022. Reportedly, Noel's mother, Cindy, had 10 children in total, but due to some family arrangement, her 3 older children had been living with their grandparents, and the grandparents had been taking care of the 3 older children and sort of raising them as their own. So this specific family of 9, which would be Noel, his 6 brothers and sisters that he lived with, his mother and her husband of about 2 years, they all lived in the 3700 block of Wisteria Drive in Everman, Texas. But they didn't actually live in the house. So there is an actual house on Wisteria Drive. And then in the backyard, there is this separate structure, which I think was a prefabricated shed of some sort. You know how they sell those Home Depot and Lowe's, and when you go into the store, they're all sitting outside, and some are bigger than others. This appeared to be a bigger prefabricated shed like structure. So there's the house, and then in the backyard, there's like this shed sort of thing. And the owner of the house on Wisteria Drive is 71-year-old Charles Parson. And Charles Parson claims to have known Noel's mother, Cindy Rodriguez, for about 10 years. Reportedly, Parson found Cindy and some of her children sleeping in a car outside of his house. And so he invited them to live with him, like come into his house and live with him, since he lived alone and he had 2 spare and empty bedrooms. And reportedly, for a while, Cindy and her children lived in the house with Charles Parson. But when Cindy got married, like I said, that happened about 2 years ago. And as her family grew and she was having more kids, Charles Parson gave Cindy and her husband permission to put this large shed in his backyard where they could stay and live. Although he also claimed that he left his door unlocked all the time, the door to his house, so the family could come and go as they pleased, since their shed had electricity and air conditioning, but no running water. So if Cindy, her husband, Archdeep, or their kids needed to use the bathroom or take a shower or, I don't know, wash their hands, anything with water, they would do so in Charles Parson's house. And they were also still using and occupying his 2 spare bedrooms inside the house. Okay, so they were like living in the shed in the backyard, but also their stuff was still inside the house in those 2 bedrooms. And Charles Parson said that a lot of the time some of the kids would sleep in the house in those bedrooms while Cindy, her husband, and the other kids were in the shed in the backyard. I don't know. It's, like I said, it's complicated. It's weird. The whole dynamics are weird. I think it's very awkward and bizarre that some random guy would invite some random woman and her kids to live with him in his house, not knowing anything about her, not knowing anything about where she came from or what she was doing. I don't know. It just seems weird. It seems like there may have been something more going on between Cindy and Charles Parson, at least initially, than he's letting on. But listen, I have lots of thoughts about this, and we're going to talk about this whole really super bizarre, awkward situation in a bit. There is no record that 6-year-old Noel was enrolled in school at the time of his disappearance or ever. And I know some people might say, well, he was just 6. Maybe he wasn't ready for school yet. He did have special needs. And okay, I get it. But by the age of 6, he should have been enrolled in kindergarten. And because of his special needs, he should have been getting some sort of education, some sort of therapy, some sort of, education, like some learning that was geared towards his disabilities and his special needs. And it doesn't seem like he was ever in a preschool, ever in like a daycare / preschool, and he definitely wasn't enrolled in kindergarten. And he and some of the other children, I believe 2 other children, had been removed from their mother Cindy's custody in 2020 after she had crashed into a pole while driving drunk with them in the car. And at that time, Noel was placed with foster parent Patrice Paris. And Paris told NBC News, quote, "I got a call from the agency that they had 3 siblings that they wanted to be placed with me, and that one of the kids had special needs. They felt as though it would be a good fit for me since I had worked with previous kids with autism disorders, and they felt like I could do very well with Noel and his other 2 siblings." End quote. And Patrice said that Noel was an absolute sweetheart who loved hugs and Happy Meals and who interacted well with other children. He was playful. He was always laughing. He always had a toy in his hand. And he had a special place in her heart because she said when she first met Noel when he was about 3, they immediately bonded. And from that point on, wherever Patrice went, Noel went, like her little shadow. She called him my little shadow, my little buddy. She called him her son multiple times in interviews. She truly had very deep, affectionate feelings towards this child. And Patrice said that, yes, Noel had challenges, but he was doing so well and he had overcome so many obstacles. He was able to talk, interact, play, laugh, navigate a tablet, and show love. And Patrice said, quote, "Everything a kid with special needs is told he can't do, he mastered that." End quote. When Noel's mother, Cindy Rodriguez, regained custody of her children in 2021, for a time after that, Patrice stayed in contact with the boy that, like I said, she loved and that she called her son. But by the fall of 2022, Cindy had stopped answering FaceTime calls from Patrice, and there was nothing that Patrice could do about it. Patrice even said, that when she had handed Noel back over to Cindy, she told her, listen, like, if you ever need babysitting, if you ever need help, if you ever feel overwhelmed or stressed because you have so many other damn kids and you need somebody to take him for, a couple hours or a couple days, we're here. Let us know. But it doesn't look like Cindy ever took her up on that offer. In October of 2022, Noel had missed one of his scheduled Department of Health medical appointments, and by that time, Noel had already missed several of these appointments, and he hadn't been seen by a healthcare professional since July. And this was very bad because, like I said, he has a lot of these issues and health issues, including chronic lung disease, and he was supposed to be seen by a doctor regularly. Now, law enforcement would soon find out that Noel's mother, Cindy, had received an ominous letter from the Department of Health threatening to withdraw her benefits if she did not bring her son in, her financial benefits. And the police would also discover that Cindy had asked a friend if she could borrow her friend's son to then use this boy to pose as Noel for the Department of Health medical appointments. And there was some comment from law enforcement in one of these articles discussing this situation where they said they believed that Cindy was using Noel just to continue these financial benefits, even though he hadn't been seen by a doctor and even though he hasn't been seen by anybody since October of 2022. The last time law enforcement can verify that Noel was seen alive was at the end of October 2022 at the hospital during the birth of his twin sisters. And at that time, it was reported that Noel looked unhealthy and extremely malnourished. So please tell me why. This boy is at a hospital, right? Looking extremely unhealthy, looking unwell, looking malnourished, skinny, like he hasn't been eating. And all these doctors and nurses around and stuff, they see this, but they don't do anything about it. They don't step in, they don't interfere, they don't sneak him away, give him some graham crackers, some apple juice. What the hell? At least they were there after he went missing. So when the police asked, hey, did you see Noel? How did he look? They could say, well, he looked really bad, man. He looked super unhealthy and extremely malnourished. So that's great. On March 20th, 2023, police officers were dispatched to the home, or the shed, where Noel had been living with his mother, his stepfather, and his 6 siblings. The police were there to do a wellness check on Noel at the request of CPS, who had gotten some reports from family members claiming that they had not seen the 6-year-old boy for some time and there was some concern about abuse and possible neglect. When Cindy Rodriguez-Singh spoke to police that day, she told them that her son Noel wasn't there. He'd actually been living with his biological father in Mexico since November. Now, at that time, police claimed they had no reason to believe that Cindy was lying, although she did seem uncooperative. She didn't seem super happy that they were there, and she evaded any further attempts that they made to contact her. Does that sound like Lori Vallow to you? Yes, absolutely. But just a few days later, the police were contacted by CPS again, and CPS was like, listen, we've been doing some more investigation since we've talked to you last, and things are looking pretty bad. CPS caseworkers had located Noel's biological father in Mexico. His name is Mariano Alvarez Contreras, but he did not have Noel. In fact, Mariano said he had never even met his son because he'd been deported back to Mexico from the United States before Noel was even born. Homeland Security confirmed that there was no evidence of Noel crossing the border from the United States into Mexico, and CPS had tried to contact Noel's 4 school-age siblings at school, only to find out that they were absent that day and that their mother, Cindy, had called the school inquiring about how to unenroll them from school. So obviously at this point, CPS is concerned that the kids aren't in school. Cindy's talking about withdrawing them from school. Noel's never been in school. No one ain't seen Noel for months. So they tried to contact Cindy to figure out what's going on. What the hell's going on here? They were unable to get a hold of her. And then they received more reports from family members that were even more concerning. Police went to interview one of these family members, a man named Contario Rodriguez, who was Cindy's brother. And he told police that it had been at least a year since he'd seen his nephew Noel. And the last time that Contario had seen Noel, things had not been good. He said that his sister Cindy had been withholding food and water from Noel, especially water because she said she didn't want him to wet himself. She didn't want to have to clean him up if he did wet himself. And I guess she told everybody that was there, you can't give him any water, don't give him any water because I'm not going to clean him up if he pees. But then a family member ended up giving Noel water anyway. And when Cindy saw this, she got really mad and she reportedly hit Noel with her car keys. So the way that the story was kind of told was the car keys were at the end of a lanyard, and she kind of like took the lanyard and started like whipping Noel with the car key portion at the end of the lanyard. And reportedly, Cindy had also been telling people that she thought her 6-year-old son, Noel, was evil and a demon and possessed. And she was concerned, afraid, terrified actually, that he would harm her newborn twin girls. Sounds like Lori Vallow to me. Contario also recounted something that Cindy had told their mother. Cindy had claimed that Noel wasn't around because she'd sold him to a woman in the parking lot of a Fiesta Mart, but she couldn't contact this woman to get Noel back or to check on him or to prove to her mother and brother that, he was still alive because she was afraid that CPS was going to be called on her again. Because contacting the abductor of your child or the person you sold your child to is way worse than selling your child to somebody, right? CPS is going to be so super pissed that you tried to get your child back and you tried to find out where he was. They're going to be way more pissed that you're contacting the person that you sold your kid to than the fact that you sold your kid. That's completely logical, makes complete sense. And why am I getting so upset about this small point when obviously Cindy is just using this as a story, right? Because the police checked into this. They said there's no evidence at all that Cindy sold her child in a parking lot or anywhere. There's no evidence at all that Noel went to Mexico. There's no evidence of anything that basically Cindy's reported to be true. There's nothing to back any of her statements up. So it's definitely not true. It's just a cover. And I guess that her family members, like her brother and her mother, were smart enough and, aware enough, maybe used to her and her tactics and her manipulations enough to realize like that story doesn't make sense. And we need to, call CPS again and keep reporting this until something happens. So I'm really happy about that, I will say, because so many of these cases where these kids go missing and they're pulled out of school and no one sees them for months or years, sometimes nobody reports them missing, like no family members, not their aunts, uncles, grandmothers, parents, no one. It's like that's the worst, because then it's like, is anybody even missing this kid? It's like nobody even cares that they're gone. So at least in Noel's case, he had his uncle and his grandmother who were advocating for him, who were calling CPS and reporting the fact that they hadn't seen him in a while, and they were doing something about it. So I really do appreciate that. At around midnight on March 25th, 2023, an Amber Alert was issued for Noel Rodriguez Alvarez. And the Amber Alert asked the public to be on the lookout for the little boy and or a gray 2012 Chevy Silverado with what was described as a unique mural of Santa Muerte on the rear windshield. Now, this is a far more complex conversation than we have time for right now, a far more complex conversation than, this video even needs specifically for this case. But for anybody out there who's unfamiliar, or if you haven't watched Breaking Bad or Narcos, or if you don't keep up with the drug cartels of Mexico, Santa Muerte is the saint of death, the unofficial saint of death, usually portrayed as a female skeletal figure. Now, the Catholic Church and the Mexican government do not officially recognize this saint, but she is quite popular among the drug cartels of Mexico, specifically the Gulf, Sinaloa, and Juarez cartels, because she is said to offer them protection and help in committing their dirty deeds and getting away with murder, basically. And, it's very simplified. I boiled it down a lot. But along with migration patterns, Santa Muerte, which literally translates to holy death, she's made her way to the United States and other countries of the world as well. Now, am I saying that everyone who worships this unofficial saint is a murderer or a criminal or a violent drug cartel member? No, of course not. She's actually quite popular among the disenfranchised, and millions of people worldwide are followers, and they can't all be bad. They can't all be murderers. I understand that, but it would be irresponsible and not factual of me to act as if Santa Muerte is not used to commit terrible acts. And when I say used, I mean, sometimes these terrible acts are done to provide her with the sacrifice that is needed in order to continue her protection of these violent criminals. And I was actually introduced to this saint, Santa Muerte, when I was looking into the ritualistic murder of college student Mark Kilroy, which is a series that you will all get to see during this year's Halloween festivities. I started researching it last year. I realized it was like a much bigger case with a lot of like ins and outs and subtleties that I needed to spend more time with. But Santa Muerte has been basically the figurehead for these cartels and these violent criminals. For instance, in 2004, authorities in Tepito, Mexico arrested a local car thief who, as it turned out, was also a psychopath who once a year would kill virgins and babies as a sacrifice to Santa Muerte to gain her favor and her magical protection. In 2008, members of the Sinaloa cartel were captured, and they were taken to various public Santa Muerte shrines by members of the Gulf cartel, and once there, the Sinaloa cartel members were murdered as sacrifices to the Saint of Death. The Los Zetas cartel is known to also worship Santa Muerte as their patron saint, and many members have her image tattooed on their bodies. This same cartel is known to have left multiple bodies scattered around Mexico, people killed and decapitated in sacrifice to the saint. So apparently the cartels in the criminal element in general, they pray to Santa Muerte for riches, for protection, and the ability to go about their dirty deeds unseen by the authorities. And in order to receive what they want, they need to give her something, usually a human life, right? Like, that's just what it is. And we will find that Noel's mother, Cindy Rodriguez, seemed to be a huge Santa Muerte fan, which could mean something, or it could mean nothing. She could just be one of those people that's not bad, that just worships the saint or just has shrines and altars to the saint all over her living space. But authorities in Everman, Texas believe that Cindy's fixation on this saint is certainly relevant. And once again, we're going to talk about that in a second, why they think that. So the Amber Alert for Noel was canceled and discontinued when the police found the Chevy Silverado with the mural on the back window in the parking lot of the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport on March 26th at around 6 p.m. And at that point, Noel's status was upgraded to an endangered missing person. The next stop for law enforcement was to go to the home of Charles Parson, the owner of the house that Cindy, her husband, and her kids lived at, or at least lived in the backyard of. And listen, I don't like to be judgmental. I don't, at least not out loud. But instinctually, and this is just me, don't come for me, okay? This is just my opinion. Instinctually, I feel like something's going on with this dude, okay? Something's off with him. It is the weirdest dynamic I've seen in a long time. Charles and Cindy and the kids, and then her husband, Archdeep, who pops into the picture, and he starts living with all of them. Real weird. Now listen, the police have made a point of saying multiple times that Charles Parson has been cooperating and that he's not considered to be like a person of interest. But I will say, just my opinion, don't come for me, allegedly, I feel he's either involved somehow, or he is the most delusional person to ever walk the face of the earth. And it looks like Cindy's mother and Noel's grandmother might agree with me on the Charles Parson front. And like I said, I'll tell you why in a second. We're going to get there. But anyways, the police go to this dude's house and they're like, what's up with Cindy and the kids and what's going on? What happened here? Like, tell us about your situation. And they got permission from Charles to search the property. And once again, police have said Charles Parson has been very cooperative, okay? Charles said that he was stunned when he found out that Cindy and her husband and kids had left because he had no idea that they were leaving. He had no idea where they went. And, they hadn't even said goodbye. In fact, he said they dropped him off at the hospital a few days prior because he was having an operation. And they were supposed to pick him back up after the operation, but they never showed up. And there was a reason they never showed up to pick Charles Parson up from the hospital. And as police would begin to go through cell phone and financial records, a clearer image of what Cindy Rodriguez and her husband, Arshdeep Singh, had been up to in the months leading up to their visit from law enforcement began to emerge. Now remember, the last confirmed sighting of Noel was at the end of October 2022, just about a week after his twin sisters were born. On November 1st, 2022, Cindy had passport photos taken of herself and of her 6 children. excluding Noel. Noel did not get a passport photo taken. The next day, on November 2nd, Cindy applied for passports for herself and her 6 children, once again, excluding Noel. Noel didn't get a passport. The following week, on November 6th, Cindy had been online researching the cost of a trip to India. On March 21st, 2023, the day after police showed up to ask questions about Noel, both Cindy and her husband, Arshdeep, obtained electronic visas for a trip to India. And the next day, on March 22nd, Arshdeep Singh reportedly stole over $10,000 from his employer. So I'll break it down a little bit for you. Arshdeep Singh worked for a company called AGHA Enterprises, and it looks like they own and operate some convenience stores in Texas. And Arshdeep's boss, a man named Mohammed Khan, he said that he'd hired Singh about 2.5 years prior to manage merchandise for the stores and to help with banking, which gave Arshdeep Singh access to the company's safe. Now, here is Everman Police Chief Craig Spencer explaining further.
Investigators also noticed an abnormally large cash deposit into Arshdeep's bank account.
Surveillance images show Arshdeep Singh, the stepfather of Noel Rodriguez Alvarez, making a cash deposit at a bank. Everman police say that money was stolen.
This deposit took place on March 22nd, just hours before fleeing the country.
The U.S. Secret Service task force is investigating what happened to the money after that. Singh worked for a company that owns convenience stores, including one near his home. Everman police believe Singh stole the money from his employer.
Arshdeep had access to the company's safe as a part of his normal job responsibilities. Investigators learned that Arshdeep first fraudulently altered the company's cash deposit records, likely in order to prevent detection, and then removed over $10,000 in cash from the company's safe, traveled to the nearest bank, and deposited $8,000 of that cash into his own personal account.
So I'm kind of like a little fangirl of Chief Spencer because he's been really involved with this case. The way he's really grabbed the case and taken charge, I dig it. And he's very communicative and he's very open about what he's feeling and what's happening. So I like that a lot. So yay, Craig Spencer. So what he said there is Arshdeep stole over $10,000 from his job. He then deposited $8,000 of that into his personal account, and then he and his wife Cindy and 6 kids, minus Noel, boarded a flight at DFW International Airport, and that flight was headed to Istanbul, Turkey. And, they left America, they landed in Turkey. From Turkey, they boarded another plane and ended up in India, which is reportedly where Cindy's husband, Arshdeep Singh, is originally from. So at this point, we believe that these 2 people and these 6 kids are all in India. So back to Charles Parson, who the papers continue to refer to as Cindy and Arshdeep's landlord, but really that's definitely not what he was at all, okay? Charles Parson said he had no idea that Cindy and her family were going anywhere. He had no idea that they were going to take off without even saying goodbye. And he said that after Cindy and her kids had been living with him for a while, they became like family to him. And Cindy would tell him that he was her children's godfather, right? And Charles has all these pictures of himself with the kids, including Noel. And, I guess I will say, that seems wholesome enough. He definitely seemed to think that he was like their godfather. These people don't seem to know what the word godfather means because you can't just walk up to somebody and be like, you're my kid's godfather. Hello, welcome to the family. It doesn't, in reality, that's not how it works. In my opinion, this was probably a genuine sentiment for him that he felt close to the kids and he felt like their godfather. But to me, it feels maybe that it was a little bit manipulative on Cindy's part where she wanted Charles to feel that she and her kids and her husband were like family because then he would continue doing for her. He would continue letting her live in his house for free, right? Because Charles said he never did charge Cindy rent. Even though she lives in a shed in his yard and takes up 2 of the 3 bedrooms in his house, he said she helped with bills. For instance, he claimed he couldn't remember a time since she'd moved in that he had to buy groceries for the house. And okay, why should you? Why should you, Charles? Why should you buy groceries and put food in the house when there's one of you and 40 of them? Why would you be the one buying food for the house. You're like a 71-year-old man. What do you eat? Like a sandwich a day? You know, they got 6 kids, man. Why would you be buying food for the house and for everybody when you're one person? And Cindy never paid rent, okay? The least she could do is make sure there's like bread and milk in the house. Good Lord. Talk about like being happy with the bare minimum, Charles. I really do think she was using him and taking advantage of him, and she had been doing so since the day they met. But anyways, Charles Parsons said, you know, they were very close. They were like family. They'd all often have meals together, and Cindy would help take care of him sometimes because he had like medical issues. And in the 9 or 10 years that they'd all lived with him, Charles had come to know Cindy and her kids quite well, including Noel, who Charles described as being shy but sweet. Charles said that he didn't believe Cindy or Arshdeep would hurt Noel because they were good parents and good people. He said they spoiled their kids, always made sure they had toys and clothes, and they'd set up a play set and a trampoline outside of their shed for the kids to use and play on. Once again, bare minimum, like just because you spoil your kids and make sure they have toys doesn't mean necessarily that you are a good parent or a good person, but okay, Charles. And Charles said, yes, Cindy and Arshdeep sometimes had trouble caring for Noel because of his disabilities, but they did the best they could, and like any family, they had their share of troubles, but they loved each other. And Charles also claimed that after the twins were born, Noel had a hard time with it, and he seemed to be feeling maybe a little bit displaced, maybe a little bit jealous of the new babies, and this caused him, Noel, to sometimes refuse to eat, which then made him lose a ton of weight and become dangerously thin. Hold on. We gotta stop here for a second. Do you think that all of this that Charles is saying is something he witnessed or something he heard, right? So maybe he saw that Noel was losing weight and becoming dangerously thin, and Charles said to Cindy, what's going on? Why is Noel losing so much weight? And Cindy was like, well, you know, since the twins have come, he's been jealous and he's going on hunger strikes. Like, what 6-year-old do you know goes on a hunger strike? Okay? I gotta look this up. Okay, so I looked this up just to see if this is like a common thing, if 6-year-old children go on hunger strikes because they're mad about having new siblings in the house, even though Noel already had like 55 brothers and sisters. So I don't know why this would be a shock to him. Maybe because he was the youngest. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't seem plausible to me. Okay, because as far as I know, when kids get hungry, they will usually eat. If they get hungry enough, they'll eat. And like, have my kids ever refused to eat? Yeah, for like a day or two, just because they're going through a phase, but not because they're trying to like make a statement, you know, not because they're trying to like make some political statement and force me to cave into their will. It's just because they're going through a phase and then they get hungry enough and they'll eat. And if they don't, what do you do as the parent? You take them to the doctor. You take them to therapy. You bring them to see a medical professional who can determine what to do, determine why this is happening, and determine whether or not this person or this child has to be put on like an IV so they can get some nutrition. You don't just let your kid continue to lose weight and become dangerously thin. You don't do that, okay? But from what I can tell, yes, hunger strikes are sometimes a thing that toddlers do just because they are going through a phase, their bodies are changing, they don't need to eat as much, or they are trying to make a very short-lived point, but they will not do this for very long because they'll be hungry, and they might even sometimes like sneak down into the kitchen when they think you're asleep and eat food so that you don't see them eating during the day and you think that they're on a hunger strike. But in general, children don't have a ton of restraint, you know? They're not like over here fasting 10 to 12 hours a day just to be healthy. It's like they get hungry, they eat. You know, they don't have a lot of restraint. They don't have a lot of ability to, you know, not do something on an impulse. So I wonder if Charles Parsons saw Noel acting out and refusing to eat, or if this was just a secondary story told to him by his buddy Cindy, who he seems to believe every word that comes out of her mouth. Charles Parson also claimed that he had last seen Noel around Thanksgiving, and this gives me some pause because, as I said, the police have communicated that Parson has been cooperating. He's not considered a suspect in this case. However, they've also multiple times announced that the last sighting of Noel alive that they can legitimize, that they can kind of prove and verify, is the end of October. But we have Charles here claiming he saw Noel at the end of November, yet the police don't use that timeline in their official statement. They're not saying, hey, the last time we can verify anyone saw this kid alive was Thanksgiving, the end of November. They're saying the end of October, which makes me wonder, if they maybe do have some reservations about Charles Parson. And maybe if they're not believing the fact that he claims to have seen Noel at the end of November, maybe it's because they don't believe a lot of what he's saying. And as I mentioned, it seems that Noel's maternal grandmother may have kind of been on the same page. Cindy's mother, Noel's grandmother, who we're simply going to call Helen, because she has spoken to the media, but her first language is Spanish, and she also wanted to remain anonymous for her own safety, which makes you kind of wonder what kind of stuff her daughter Cindy was into when Cindy's own mother doesn't want the papers to print her name. Or maybe she's worried about, I don't know, maybe she's in the country illegally and she's worried about being deported. Maybe that's why she doesn't want to give her name. Either way, she didn't give her name. She remained anonymous. So instead of just calling her Cindy's mother or Noel's grandmother, when I refer to her in this video, I'm just going to call her Helen because it was my grandmother's name and also because it's a pretty name. So Helen, she reported to the police that she had heard her daughter refer to Noel as evil and possessed, and that Cindy had oftentimes expressed concern and fear that Noel would hurt her twin baby daughters. Helen had also witnessed Cindy withholding food and water from Noel, that hunger strike, that hunger strike that's being supported by Noel's mother. And Helen said that Cindy would often complain about Noel's disabilities and medical issues. She would demean him, she would insult him, and she hit him with her keys. Helen said she'd been raising Cindy's 3 eldest children as her own because her daughter Cindy had substance abuse issues. And she also said in 2020, Cindy's kids had been removed from her home, including Noel. And Helen said the kids had to go to foster care because she would have taken them in, but she felt like she just wouldn't be able to take care of them with her advanced age and the fact that she was battling cancer. But when Cindy began to complain a lot about Noel after she regained custody of him in 2021, Helen had offered to take him. She was like, well, if he's that hard for you, I will take him. I'll figure it out. However, Cindy had refused. So now we have 2 people, Patrice Paris, the foster mother of Noel, and Helen, Noel's grandmother, who both told Cindy when she got custody of Noel back, hey, if you need help or if you need me to take him off your hands temporarily or longer, let me know. I'll figure it out. And Cindy said no, which is interesting to me. When asked why her daughter Cindy had fled the country, Helen told a Fort Worth media outlet, quote, she killed him, and that's why she fled. I want her brought back so she can tell us where Noel is. Where is he? What was the reason? He was a boy who didn't deserve the bad fortune she gave him. He was an innocent child. Poor boy. End quote. And in regards to Charles Parson, Helen said, literally, she said, that man knows everything. So what do you think? I don't know. I don't feel like just letting Charles Parson walk off into the sunset without a second look. Personally, in my opinion, allegedly don't come for me. What do you think? So law enforcement did a cursory search of the house, the shed, and the grounds with Charles Parson's permission, and they noticed a common theme in all of these places. Santa Muerte, all over the place, right? In the shed, in the house, the mural on the back window of the truck, there was a shrine, there's altars, and according to Everman Police Chief Craig Spencer, quote, in this case, it's very important. She idolizes Santa Muerte. It's everywhere within the shed. It was everywhere within the home. It was on her vehicle. So it was pretty evident to us she was idolizing and worshiping, end quote. So are you telling me that Charles Parson didn't see this skeleton saint of death all over his house? Because Police Chief Spencer said it was all over the shed and in the house. So was Charles Parson also a follower of Santa Muerte, this cult? Was Charles Parson just like, oh, this is cute decor. I like this look. It's very edgy. What did he know about this? What did he know about this? And if it seems like I'm focusing on Charles Parson a lot, it's because, besides the people who have run and fled the country, he was around Noel the most. He lived with him. He saw him, allegedly, day to day. So what's going on there? And Charles Parson said, he didn't see Noel since Thanksgiving. And then Cindy had told Charles, oh, Noel went to live with his father in Mexico. And Charles was like, okay. He said, I had no reason to think she was lying to me. So police would also go in with a search warrant, and from the living areas of the family, the house, the shed, police collected anything that would help them piece together the movements of Cindy and her husband, Arshdeep. And that included medical and financial records, any evidence of physical injury, any evidence of abuse, photos, and electronic devices such as phones, tablets, computers. However, the thing that law enforcement seemed specifically focused on was a large concrete patio that had recently been installed on the property of Charles Parson in his backyard. Investigators drilled through a portion of the concrete slab and they found nothing related to Noel. However, they returned the next day and they spent all night busting up the whole damn thing. And we need to talk about this patio because it's very important and a little convoluted. And here's why. So, as I've mentioned, Noel lived with his family in this larger shed structure that had electricity and AC, and there's 2 beds in there, toys, clothes, all that jazz. But in the same backyard, right across from the shed structure, stood another shed, a makeshift shed, it's been described as. At least there used to be a makeshift shed there just 3 weeks prior, but now there was a big-ass, unpermitted concrete patio that Cindy Rodriguez Singh had paid $5,000 to have installed herself. She didn't, install it herself. She didn't, pour the concrete. She paid the money herself to have this concrete put in. And she used her family's entire tax return to do so. And reportedly, she'd been very particular about how she wanted the patio to be poured, telling the contractor who was doing it that she wanted the concrete to be thicker on the east side of the patio because they were planning on putting a gym there. So whatever makeshift shed had stood there at one point had been ripped to the ground so that this concrete patio could be poured just 3 weeks before the police came looking for Noel. And I think it makes complete sense why law enforcement wanted to focus on that, right? With Chief Spencer saying, quote, "She doesn't own the home. We find it very odd that she would spend her funds on somebody else's home to put in a concrete patio, especially one as large and elaborate as this. When we came out the first time, we did do a complete search of the whole patio with the ground-penetrating radar. It did not reveal anything new. However, we know this ground-penetrating radar is not 100%, so we're being thorough, making sure we aren't missing anything," end quote. So like I said, they first came in, they did the ground-penetrating radar to see if they could see anything, also to kind of show them where they should dig, if there was anything there. They didn't see anything, but they kind of pulled up a small section of the patio anyways. I wonder if it was the east side of the patio where Cindy said she wanted the concrete thicker. And then the next day they came and they demolished the whole patio. Why, right? If you didn't find anything with ground penetrating radar, if you didn't find anything in the small section that you pulled up, why would you come and bulldoze the entire thing up? And Charles Parson was very annoyed by the whole thing. He had the same question, and he made sure to tell anyone that would listen how ridiculous it was and how he felt the police were looking in the absolute wrong place. I think doth protest too much.
I know the police are desperate to find the boy, but they're looking in the wrong place is all I can say, because he's not here.
Where do you think he is?
I have no idea. I think he's in Mexico, to be honest with you.
Do you think he's alive?
Yeah, I think he's alive, and that's why I told him I wasn't going to go to that deal they had last night. Because until you show me a body that he's dead, then I'll believe you. Because I think no way he's dead. Somebody's got him. Somebody's scared that they're going to get in trouble with the law because they've got him, and they got him illegally, basically. She didn't go through the courts like I asked her. Like I told her, if you're going to adopt Noel, go through the court system, but she didn't do that.
Charles Parson was like, "This is ludicrous. There's nothing suspicious here." Cindy had paid for the patio because she wanted to add an extra room on the back of the house for her daughter. And Charles Parson said, quote, "I know the police are desperate to find the boy, but they are looking in the wrong place. I keep telling them the slab was poured after Noel supposedly disappeared. Why would he be underneath the slab? I think they just tore it up because they don't have any idea where he is and they're frustrated," end quote. Once again, man, I don't know why, but I have the worst feeling about this guy because he says he keeps telling them that the concrete was poured after Noel went missing, and that is supposed to make them and us less suspicious? I don't understand what he's talking about. It would be less suspicious if the concrete patio had been poured before Noel went missing. It's incredibly suspicious that it was poured after he went missing, right? What is he talking about? He's like, what's happening? Why would he be under the concrete. I don't know, Charles. Why would he be missing? Why would he be missing for several months, like 5 months, and his parents never reported him missing? Charles, why would that be going on, Charles? And you could say, oh, leave Charles alone. He meant that the concrete was poured long after Noel was last seen in the fall of 2022 because the patio had been installed in February of 2023. Well, that's not what he said, guys. But if you were trying to give him a pass, that's what you might say he meant, right? However, I think it's pretty evident that Noel's body could have been temporarily stored somewhere else, like a makeshift shed that used to be where the concrete was, right? And then the concrete patio was poured to have a more permanent solution to hide the body of a child that eventually someone would come looking for. Okay? Okay, Charles? Come on. But besides the obvious reasons of why one might want to find out if a potential secret was being concealed by this freshly poured concrete, there were other details the police knew which made them even more interested in that patio. Because the shack that had once stood where the patio now was, there used to be a large carpet in there. A carpet that sort of made up the base of the shack, right? They keep saying the base of the shack. So here's what I'm wondering. I wonder, because this is a makeshift shed thing, was there no floor? Was this large carpet used as the floor of the makeshift shack, right? So like walls and a ceiling, and maybe like an opening so you can walk through, but then no floor. And it would just be dirt with this large carpet over it because they kept saying it made up the base of this makeshift shack. So the police also knew that this carpet had been disposed of on March 21st, just a day after police had been sent to do a welfare check on Noel. And Cindy's husband, Arshdeep Singh, had been the one to throw the carpet out in a dumpster that was located outside of one of the convenience stores he worked at. And a series of cadaver dogs indicated that the carpet held the scent of human remains. The cadaver dogs also alerted to the area of the concrete patio, and when investigators began chopping the patio up and removing the topsoil from underneath it, the cadaver dogs indicated on the topsoil as well. So the cadaver dogs are telling us that at one point there were human remains on that carpet and on the soil that was underneath the patio, the soil that used to be underneath that makeshift shed, which is also giving me an indication that maybe there wasn't any floor and that carpet was used as the floor and whatever was on the carpet soaked through into the topsoil underneath, which is what the dogs were smelling. No body was found after the entire patio had been demolished and pulled up, but Police Chief Craig Spence said, quote, "One of the interesting pieces was the carpet wasn't even at the house. It wasn't even at the location. So the canines, to be able to alert on a piece of evidence at one place and then go over and alert again where it was previously, all that tends to add up. It does lead us to believe that there were human remains at one point in time in the shed that used to exist where that concrete patio sits," end quote. And this leads me to wonder if that makeshift shed was the place where maybe certain rituals would take place for Santa Muerte, because I know in many of the cases I read about during my research for the Mark Kilroy case, this was often true, that a separate, smaller structure would be set up for an altar and candles, because many people who follow this saint and who practice this sort of thing, they take part in daily rituals. So they like to have a separate and designated spot to do these things in, right? Like in Mark Kilroy's case, it was a shed very much like this, a makeshift shed. And the reason that it was separate was because they had all sorts of things in that shed, like a cauldron of sorts with human fat in there, and they were like boiling it, and they would sometimes string their victims up and let them bleed out because they would collect the blood. So maybe that's what that shed was set up for and what it was intended for and what it was used for until Cindy Rodriguez and her husband realized, yeah, it's been a while. Our family's asking questions. CPS is asking questions, and the police are going to be here sooner than later. So we got to sort of clean up our mess. But that structure's no longer there, right? It was filled in at great expense with thick concrete. And the dogs, the cadaver dogs, they signaled all over the patio and the carpet that had once been in the shed and even the dirt underneath the patio. It's crazy to me. It's obvious to me. On March 31st, police filed felony charges of abandonment and endangerment against Cindy and Arshdeep, and they began working with the FBI and Homeland Security to see if they could get this couple extradited and returned to the United States. On April 6th, Everman police announced that they sadly no longer believed Noel was alive and that this was now a death investigation and that they would continue searches for him, but these searches would be for Noel's body. Officials continued gathering information through their search warrants in order to narrow down areas that they should search. This way, the searches were targeted based on evidence, based on the movements of Noel's mother and her husband. And police had also received information which allowed them to identify some people with whom the couple had communicated with before fleeing the country, and so they've started to interview those people. At this point, law enforcement, along with Texas Search and Rescue, have searched and cleared hundreds of acres, but they found no sign of 6-year-old Noel Rodriguez Alvarez. And still, Goddaddy Charles Parson doesn't believe it's possible that his good friend Cindy could have harmed her son. He said that Cindy could be hard-headed and opinionated, but she was kind at heart. And what he believes happened is Cindy and her husband acted out of panic. They were afraid they'd done something wrong, so they ran because Cindy was terrified of losing her children again. Parsons said that when her children had been taken from her in 2020, it had almost broken her completely. And so she didn't want that to happen again. She was terrified. She would do anything to avoid it. And, I guess if that is true, if losing her children in 2020 almost broke her, then Cindy should probably not drive drunk into a pole with her kids in the car. But what do I know? And is it possible, Charles Parson, is it possible that Cindy and her husband ran because they were afraid, but they weren't afraid of, the kids getting taken from them again? They were afraid that they were going to get caught because they had been involved somehow in ending 6-year-old Noel's life. And they knew that there was a lot more on the line, right, than your kids getting taken away from you and put in foster care for a year or so. They were going to go to prison for life if that was the case. So they had to get out of there. Could that possibly be true? Is he this delusional, or is he like a mastermind and he knows everything that happened and he's just sending us all chasing our tails? What's going on, Charles Parson? Please let me know. Email me, okay? My email is in the description box. If you got something to say and you want to talk about this a little bit more, email me. We can chat because I have questions and I think you have some answers. But anyways, that's where we are left in this case. For a while, there was just constant news about Noel's disappearance in the media, and now it's been radio silence for 2 weeks. I guess they're still searching, they're still looking, they're still trying to get these people extradited, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good that they're going to find Noel's body. And I think they're searching so hard for Noel's body because the police know and the FBI know that they're going to have a difficult time extraditing Cindy and Arshdeep if they don't have a murder charge, right? They can't just extradite them for abandonment or neglect, I guess. That's what the experts are saying. At least they can't do that. They need, or they'll have a better chance of doing it if they have a murder charge. Then India will have to cooperate more fully. But if they can't find the body, then are they going to be able to have that murder charge? It's just very unfortunate. I will keep an eye on this case, and I'll keep you updated if something happens. But as of now, that is where we are. So if you are listening or watching this and you know anything about Noel, about his disappearance, about where he could be located, if you know his mother, if you know his stepfather, if you have a conscience and you would like to look at yourself in the mirror ever again or sleep a full night of peaceful rest ever again, then you should definitely reach out anonymously if you want and give this tip to the police. And I will put the number up on the screen that you can call. I will also put contact information in the description box. If you know anything, please reach out, because if we can find where Noel is, then they can get Cindy and Arshdeep back here and we can find out what happened. We can bury Noel. We can give him some justice and we can, figure out what happened. It's just very devastating and it's very sad because I don't think that this child is alive. Definitely not. And I do think that his mother probably had something to do with his death because, he'd been missing since the end of October. When she went and got passports for her and her kids, she left him out. She knew he was gone. She knew that he was no longer alive. She knew he wouldn't need a passport. She knew he wouldn't be coming with them to India. So that, to me, is a pretty clear indication that she did something wrong, that she was involved. And if it was just an accident, I just don't see her going to such lengths to leave and to hide. I don't see that happening. So, yeah, maybe that's what Charles Parson is trying to say. Maybe Charles Parson is trying to say that Noel died accidentally or some accident happened to him, and Cindy was afraid to call the authorities because she was afraid her other kids would be taken from her, which, I mean, if some accident happened to Noel on your watch where he ended up dead because of it, then yes, you should have your other kids taken into custody for at least a short time because he's 6. He has special needs. He has medical issues. He should be watched and with a responsible adult at all times, So that is generally what happens. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think about this case in the comment section. I actually had some requests for this case, which is how I came across it. All the talking about Fort Worth. A couple people in the comments said, oh, you should be checking into the case of Noel Rodriguez Alvarez. So that's what I did. And wow. What a really sad case it is. I hope that this little boy gets some closure because he just seemed to be the sweetest kid, the sweetest, happiest kid, and he didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve to be called a demon by his mother. He didn't deserve to be hit with keys or, starved or not allowed to drink water because she didn't want to clean up his mess if he peed. Like, he did not deserve that, man, at all. And I really hope that Cindy and Arshdeep come back to the United States so they can be handled Texas style, if you know what I mean. But anyways, that's it for today. Make sure to like this video if you liked it. Share it if you think it's worth sharing. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Subscribe if you haven't already. We have so many people here who watch all the time but aren't subscribed. So subscribe if you haven't already. Also, follow me on social media. Follow my podcast, Crime Weekly, that I co-host every week with retired police detective Derek Lavasser. You can find all the links to those things in the description box, along with the link to my coffee company, Criminal Coffee Company, the best coffee you'll ever drink, if I do say so myself. And now we have K-Cups, so yay, exciting. If you're a K-Cup drinker and that's your thing, and that's what's been holding you back from ordering Criminal Coffee, problem solved. We solved your problem. You're welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let's have only positive thoughts for Noel wherever he is, and really strong thoughts and prayers, if you're into that, going out into the universe to bring his mother back to the United States, just like we were able to bring Lori Vallow back, and we were able to prosecute Lori Vallow, because this is just, in my opinion, another Lori Vallow situation. Although I don't think Cindy Rodriguez Singh is as bananas as Lori Vallow. I think Lori Vallow is like completely 100% off her rocker. I think that Noel's mother, Cindy, is just kind of a mean bitch, honestly. She seems incredibly mean and terrible and not a good mother. Anybody that can berate a small child with special needs and make fun of them for their disabilities literally deserves to burn in hell. Literally, I said it, I meant it, period. I don't take it back. I'm not sorry about it. Burn in hell. Thank you so much for being here. Stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe, and I'll see you very, very soon.
Bottle's going straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. All these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say I Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's killing you slowly. So you got to let it go. I got blood